evening. Those of you who've not met me before, my name is Sandra McCrary. I am presently serving as the first vice president of the Escambia County Democratic Black Caucus. We are so happy that you have joined us this evening. Our members, our guests, as Derek said already, from Okaloosa Mountain and Santa Rosa County, and especially our special guest this evening, Ms. Nikki Freed. We want to, first of all, say the pledge. So if you all would stand where you are, and I will attempt to share a screen that has some flags on it. And if we just say the Pledge of Allegiance, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. And now if we could just bow our heads for a word of prayer as I go to the throne of grace. O Lord our God, how excellent is thy name in all of the earth. We thank you right now this evening for your grace and for your mercy. We'd like for you to come into this meeting of the Escambia County Democratic Black Caucus on Zoom, that we may carry on the business of ensuring that all people are created equal by providing them with the voting rights that they need and the opportunity to register to vote. We want to represent all people, but especially the African American community. Bless our guests this evening. Bless us all and our families as we go into this wonderful holiday season. We thank you right now for forgiveness of sins. All of these blessings we ask in thy son Jesus' name, we pray, and for his sake. Amen. Thank you. Now I'm going to turn the rest of the program over to Derek, since we've gotten the formalities out of the way. Derek?
Thank you, Vice President McCrary. I just want to say welcome to everybody. Thank you for joining us for this December meeting. We are going to keep this a brief meeting to allow each of you to enjoy the remainder of the month of December and catch up on any well-needed rest and plans and things that you have going on that we need to conquer before the end of the month, end of the year. So this will be a short meeting. I do want to recognize just a couple of people before we get started, say thank you for everybody for attending tonight's meeting. We certainly do appreciate your involvement and willingness to learn of our candidates in taking part in our Meet the Candidate series. So special thank you to our Democratic Black Caucus of Florida, the executive board. I see our current and wonderful president, Trevor Mallory, is on the phone on our call, as well as our first vice president, Jordan Pride, our treasurer, Jill Lewis-Daggs, and I don't know if I'm missing anybody or not. I believe that's all from our state level, but I'd also like to say thank you to our sistering chapters of Okaloosa, Walton, and Bay County, for those of you all who have joined the call as well. Thank you. And sincerest thanks to Abby for joining and helping to get this orchestrated. So with that, I would like to take a moment and introduce our candidate and our speaker of note tonight. Tonight we have our current Commissioner of Agriculture and gubernatorial candidate, Nikki Freed, with us. Nikki is the only Democrat to win statewide in Florida since 2012, where she serves as our Commissioner of Agriculture and Consumer Services since 2018. Before taking office, Nikki spent her career as a public defender fighting for the justice and giving a voice to those who are voiceless. A longtime advocate for criminal justice reform and marijuana legalization, Nikki saw the devastating impact of the injustice with our criminal justice system. As an attorney, she defended homeowners, stood up to the big banks during the foreclosure crisis, helped secure resources for children in the foster care system, and advocated for medical marijuana. As the only Democrat in Florida's cabinet, Nikki has been our voice in Tallahassee, standing up for our rights, safety, and democracy. She's kicked the NRA out of weapons licensing permitting, legalized hemp for farmers, defended voting rights, and protected our environment. Now, after more than 2 decades of Republican leadership in Tallahassee, Nikki is running for governor to break Florida's corrupt, rigged, and build a system that gives the power back to us. So I would like to take the moment to introduce her, but just on a personal note, this is one of my favorite people from all time. We go way back from undergrad. Just on a personal, I'll share, she was a person who kind of introduced me into this world of politics as we are now, which you may not remember, but my first time in student senate, I just kind of looked around and was like, oh, wow, these people are super serious about everything. And so with that, I went from there to an appointment on game day parking legislation, and the books have been written from that point on. So I'm happy to have her here as a friend, but most importantly, as one of our gubernatorial candidates. So I would like to turn it over and introduce and give the floor to Ms. Freed and say thank you.
Well, thank you, Derek, not only for the introduction tonight, but of course, your friendship for one of the things that I've learned on this campaign trail and certainly have learned along the way is making sure that you're the same person that you've always been, and that's who I have always been, is somebody who's been fighting for injustice my entire life. I was born and raised in Miami, where I was a part of the Jewish community. And so one of the things that I learned growing up was tikkun olam, to heal the world, and that when you stand up against it, I was doing soup kitchens and Habitat for Humanity and going to civil rights parades and marches back when I was and so I've been consistent on the things that I fight for, the things that I care about, showing for the people of our state. And I did it when I was student body president at UF, the first female University of Florida system, and Derek, and certainly as body president, communities, and really understanding the differences between the same way in the state of Florida. And when I left in law school, I went to first a big law firm in Jacksonville, doing commercial litigation, and realized that was not my path. My path was always to do good and to give back. And that's why I chose all up close and personal the injustice of the system.
I think we may be, there may be a lag. I'm not sure if any of you guys can hear me. Let's see if we can.
You were represented by a public defender. You recently that I saw my community members and law enforcement going out of their way to make certain path to fix some of these issues. Am I still lagging, Derek?
Yeah, it's still just a bit of a lag.
Turn off my video and see if that helps.
Okay, wonderful.
Is that any better?
Yeah, that's
I can better with no video on
now. Yeah.
Is that better?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Perfect.
Much
We're
better.
gonna pull over too to make sure. Awesome. I'm gonna try. We're gonna pull over. I'm actually in your neck of the woods. I was coming from Bay.
Oh, okay. I get the lag then. I still got just a little. Now we don't hear you. So I'm gonna wait.
we're traveling back to Tallahassee, so over make sure that the
I think we may have lost her. Let me double check here. Sean, yeah. I think she'll join us just a second. Let's see if we can get her back. I see her still on the call, but I'm not sure. Hang on. Can everybody else hear me okay? All right.
can you hear me?
Yes, just now we can. But no longer, if you're saying, oh, well, you're muted now, so. We'll give it just a minute, guys. Bear with us. We all are familiar with the Zoom technical issues, so just a moment.
You all hear me?
Yes, we can hear. Can you say one more thing just to make sure we're clear?
Go Gators.
Yeah, there you go. We can hear you.
So basically what I was saying is, I left the public defender's office to go fight for homeowners during the foreclosure crisis, really trying to protect the people that were taken advantage of, seeing time and time again that people were sold a bad bill of goods, especially our minority communities. And so I was able to go all across our state fighting homeowners, and eventually made my way up to Tallahassee, and I saw so much corruption and so much nepotism and so much of, if you didn't have big checks and you didn't have representing the corporations, your bills didn't make it through. And I just saw it and just made me so angry. And that's why I ran for office in 2018, was to make things better for the people of our state. And we have so much work to be doing to make sure that we have a Florida where every Floridian has equal access to opportunity. As I was saying, as a public defender, I saw firsthand the inequities in our justice system. And as governor, I'm planning on fixing that broken justice system. That would be one of my highest priorities. And I can tell you that as ag commissioner, I made building a department that reflected our state a top priority. And that's what I'm going to do as governor. One of the first things I did as commissioner was create our diversity and inclusion director, which got to work on looking at ways to make sure we had diversity training inside the office, going out there and talking on, as far as the consumer advocate, of issues that were impacting minority communities, and being that fierce fighter and that defender for our consumers, especially in our minority communities. The other things that I saw inside of the ag department, we had very little diversity in our leadership. So I had 2 directors who were minorities. We're now up to 12. I appointed the first ever woman of color to the Status of Woman Committee, had the first ever woman of color as the Agriculture Woman Hall of Fame, and Woman Ag of the Year, because these are things that were really important to me and things that I wanted to tackle to make sure that our department truly reflected the people of our state. And just recently, we saw the ongoing racial inequities when it comes to affecting medical marijuana legalization movement and medical marijuana licenses. We passed a system for medical marijuana that awarded people that were already in ag, that had financial capital, that had access. And they realized along the way that 30 plus years ago, Black farmers didn't have access to capital and didn't have access to land. And so the program was already discriminatory on its face. And then they decided to try to right it by adding 1 Black farmer's license in 2017. And we're about to end 2021, and that license has still not been handed out. And in fact, adding insult to injury, doubled the application fee. So right now, we have 22 license holders in the state of Florida. None are minority owned, where we know that marijuana laws historically have been going after and targeting minority, especially Black communities. And so we are seeing time and time again that white men are making millions upon millions of dollars, where Black, brown men are still going to jail and prison for the same exact offense. But we need to be building an economy here that actually allows everyone to participate, not that just those who are donating large sums of money to Ron DeSantis. So one of the other things that we have been looking into inside the department is access to capital. I take this example that we have one of our farm bureaus, farm credits that are here in the Panhandle, that let's say that they give out $100 million of loans every single year. The last few years, which has historically happened, 90% of those loans are to white farmers, where 90% of the applicants are Black farmers. So it is just on its face, knowing that access to capital for entrepreneurship for farmers is just not happening. We also are about to launch something that I've been working on inside of my office with the Office of Financial Regulation. How are we encouraging our state chartered banks to be accessing this capital to minority entrepreneurs, and asking those really tough questions inside of our pension fund? How much money is actually being reallocated into our pension fund, into minority businesses, to small businesses? And how many of our hedge fund managers who are managing that money being minorities? The answer is going to be not shocking to anybody on this line, because we know what is happening, that in order to lift up our state and lift up our communities, we need to make sure that we are providing access, that we're providing these resources to our entrepreneurs and our minorities. And it also means working to recognize that we have to repair historically injustices when we see them in Florida, like what's happened in Wedgwood. I've spoken to people out, that are living in Wedgwood. I know the issue, and I wish I could solve it today, because I know firsthand what these discriminatory policies are doing. And unfortunately, you have a state representative and senators in this area who don't care, because it's not votes for them. We know the discriminatory housing policies and redlining, that Black families who are able to purchase homes can only purchase them in areas that were undesirable. And so, of course, we're seeing how these neighborhoods are suffering today from higher rates of asthma and other conditions because of the unsanitary and unsafe neighborhood conditions. And it's not right, and it's not just, and we need a governor who's going to recognize this problem and work to fix it. Another thing that we've seen inside of our department is our Office of Energy, that we know that minority communities and low-income communities pay 200% more for their energy bills because they don't have the resources to fix insulation, buy new lighting, new appliances, to not only reduce their energy costs, but also be part of energy equality and energy efficiency. There is so much work that needs to be done, and we need a governor who's going to prioritize all the people of our state, not just the 1%ers, be bringing in better paying jobs. Minimum wage jobs are just not going to cut it, especially in inflationary times like we're experiencing now. We need to be legalizing cannabis. We need to bring the film industry back. We need to make sure that we are putting resources into our Space Coast, all of which are better paying jobs. But we don't prioritize that right now. We've had 25 straight years of a one-party system in our state, and that just doesn't work, and that doesn't cut it. And we need a candidate who is going to be able to take on Ron DeSantis, which is what I have done every single day for the last 3 years, forcing him to pull down money for SNAP and EBT benefits, pulling down money for education, all money that he was planning on leaving on the table, unless we had forced him to do this and called him out every single day. And I know, Derek, at the beginning of this meeting, you said you wanted to make this meeting short. So I will get off of my soapbox and be wanting to just hear from you all and answer any questions that you have. And I'm sorry for the connectivity issue and not being able to see my enthusiasm and my excitement, but broadband is a real thing. Thank God for President Biden and bringing down $39 billion to the state of Florida. One of the priorities, both for myself and for the Biden administration, was making sure connectivity and broadband was going to get better into the state of Florida.
All right. Well, thank you for that. Thank you for the address, Commissioner Free. We certainly do appreciate you taking the time out to talk to us folks up here in the Panhandle. I'm glad that you made the opportunity to make yourself available to do so. With that, I will ask if there's anybody in our body that has any questions of Commissioner Freed, certainly now would be the time to ask them at this point. I will recognize those individuals, if you can, who are currently on video, to simply raise your hand as it is in the Zoom functionality, not this, but the actual hand itself. And we'll take you on a first come, first serve base. Otherwise, what I will do is I'll kick off the questions with two that were submitted to us. And they're going to be focused around, the first of which is going to be focused around our returning citizens. Can you tell us, as we, Commissioner Freed, as we now have a lot of it with HB1 and all of the legislation that has passed preventing our returning citizens or those who have been convicted of felonies and have served their time, the inability to restore their voting rights because of the fines and fees that the Florida legislature has enacted. Can you tell us what plans, if any, you plan to do as governor to kind of help mitigate this so we can get the 1.5 million that we see should be having their rights restored, actually get them restored for us?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that I have been tackling since I got elected. I campaigned on Amendment 4. And again, past public defender. I'm gonna turn my camera off because mine says Cape Internet unstable. Every single time that I, had a client and we were, having a sentencing, every case, I said, Your Honor, can you please transfer all of their court costs and fees to a civil judgment, knowing that my clients were never going to be able to pay for the court costs and fees. I wish every public defender had done that in the history of our state, because we would not be in this situation today. But as a member of the Clemency Board, it's just something else that I have tackled every time. When I went up against the Speaker of the House, Jose Oliva, who was implementing Amendment 4. We in fact stopped talking because I was fighting him on this one issue. I called it a modern day poll tax in a tweet, and he then refused to ever talk to me again. It is what it is, but, and what I've done in the Clemency Board is that every single case that has come before us, when the governor has tried to say the same exact thing, how much do you owe on court costs, fees, and fines? And would say, well, you have to pay that first. And I would always object. So I am on the record saying that is not the direction that we should be taking. Amendment 4 passed these court costs and fees, which are paid to the state. We either should be completely waiving them, allow our court systems to come back in and waive them, or come up with protocols at least to transfer them over to civil judgments or to community service hours, and not making that part of them getting back their rights. So as a head of the Clemency Board, this would be the first thing that I tackle, is to make sure that those rules get changed and that no longer becomes a precursor for getting their rights back.
Thank you for that. I will acknowledge Karen Swisher. Karen, if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself and then ask your question.
Hey there. I don't know if it's a combination question, a comment. I love your presentation, Nikki. It is wonderful. You are basically preaching to the choir. How do we get this information out to the people who know are backing DeSantis? I mean, do they actually know how much corruption is going on? Do they actually know your comment about 90% of the permits going out to white farmers for the pot presentation versus 90% of applications going out to Black farmers, and none of them are ever getting approved? How do we get that information out to the people who actually are going to do the voting?
Yeah, and look, that's the job of all of us. It's me coming on to these Zooms, educating everybody that I'm talking to. It's making sure that as I'm traveling the state, of course, the campaign is just kicking off, and these are part of the things that I talk about. I mean, I call it out every day. I mean, this is what, you look at my social media feed, you look at everything that I've been talking about. I've been consistent calling out the nepotism, calling out the corruption. I mean, my God, I mean, every day it gets worse and worse, the things that are coming out of not just the governor's office, but the entire administration. You know, there was an individual who was a state representative who created a position for himself when he was in the legislature, an IT, like it was a statewide IT director. He then resigned from the legislature, took this position, and then just spent $400,000 on furniture. Can you all imagine what you could do with $400,000 in your community? My God. And so it is something that we talk about, but it is a bit more, on the campaign trail and going out there, doing more commercials, doing more interviews, and just, but it is important in talking about these things. I am not shy about calling this out, and making sure that I'm educating everybody about what is happening out here in our state.
For that. And thank you, Karen, for your question. I'll go ahead and move to Brian, if you'll unmute and ask your question.
Sure, okay. I've asked this of the other two candidates for governor as well. India has 1 billion people. They vote, their wait times are incredibly short. They're less than an hour, which is what some wait times here in Escambia County are. Do you have any plans to fix that, especially as our population increases? That problem's only going to get worse as we get people to more registered to vote people, more people in those lines, the more people who don't want to come and vote because they don't have the ability to stand like me for more than right. Sorry. Yes.
Yep, I think it's twofold. I think one, we've got to repeal that horrific piece of legislation that they passed this past year. We've got to be encouraging more vote by mail, and making sure that is secure, easy, and accessible. So we got to reverse a lot of the things that they just passed. The other thing is we've got to increase the amount of money that we're giving to our supervisor of elections to make sure we've got more polling locations, because the more polling locations that we have, that need to be everywhere. And I do believe that we should have an entire day off from school and from work, that it should be a holiday. That way you've got all day to vote, because what's happening is that people get off of work, and now that's when everybody is voting at the end of the day. And so in order to make sure that people are voting consistently throughout the day, making it a holiday and letting people get off of work that day, and making sure that we've got more polling locations. And again, you need more resources in order for that to happen, because poll workers cost money. There are a lot that are volunteering, but they're still buying more machines, buying more, having more, actual staff on hand. So more resources, more money, more polling locations, holiday, as well as reversing some of those egregious SB 90 issues this past year, which would in fact hurt our vote by mail drives, which we need to make sure it is easier to do. People feel more secure with it. And I think that will help alleviate some of those issues. But I'm always game for other ideas too.
Thank you, Brian. We'll go ahead and acknowledge our first vice president here locally, Ms. Sandra McCurry. Ms. McCurry, if you'll go ahead and unmute and ask your question. You're still muted. Wait, sorry, you're still muted. Hang on, I'll do it. I got you.
I'm done now. Thank you. Commissioner Freed, I just want to commend you for what you're standing for. And as they stated before, you're preaching to the choir. We on this call definitely agree with your stance. However, I need to know how you're going to get the buy-in from the right to convince them to cross over to our way of thinking. Number one, being female, and we have very few female governors. I want to know what processes are you going to use to push our stance forward on these items. Like I know you said to turn around the vote for convicted felons. Is that a law? Is that something you can do without getting buy-in from the other people that you have to represent?
Yep. Well, first and foremost, I just won. I won in 2018 in a seat that is historically white male. I'm the first female ever elected to the seat, not just in Florida, but the entire Southeast. And typically we lose that seat by 20 points. So we saw a tremendous amount of ballots because we had 2 recounts in 2018 for my race. So we saw a lot of those crossover votes that were Scott DeSantis freed ballots. So I know how to get those votes to come over. And I always say this, my dad is a diehard Republican. My mom is a diehard Democrat. I was taught in a household to listen to both sides, to be able to really truly hear the conversations and make logical decisions that's in the best interest of everybody. And that's the same thing I did as commissioner. The first 2 legislative sessions, my bills were being passed almost unanimously that were sponsored by Republicans. And so I know how to work across the aisle. And I certainly know the incoming leadership in the House and the Senate. And what's also very powerful? That veto pen. That veto pen is very powerful. If we all do our jobs, we'll make sure that there's enough Democrats that they cannot override a veto. And the other a powerful thing of the governor's office, we've got right now part-time legislators. If they're not willing to work with me, they become full-time legislators. And we call them into special session all throughout the year to get some of these issues passed and reversed. When it comes to the restoration of rights, that's a clemency. That is something that I can move in the clemency. And to tell you why I believe, while I will need a majority vote to make it changed, hopefully we have an entire cabinet that gets elected with me. But even if we have a split cabinet, I know firsthand that Attorney General Moody actually proposed changes to the clemency rules that created ability for people to write off these fines and fees, and to do it civil judgments or to do volunteer work. Unfortunately, the final draft came from DeSantis's office, and that was changed. So we would have some amenable members of the cabinet, even if the cabinet stayed in the way it is.
Thank you very much for that. I really appreciate it.
Are
you.
there any other questions from the body at this point? If not, I'll close on just one further question, then we'll certainly let you go there. As we know, Commissioner Freed, a lot of times people, especially candidates, run on the voting base of the largest counties in the state in order to get elected. What is your plan to engage the smaller counties, and how can we as members of said smaller counties help in the process to make sure not only that the right candidates get involved and get elected so that we can turn things around here in the state?
Yeah. Did I tell you I was coming from Bay County?
Yeah.
And I think that is exactly how I won in 2018. We have seen time and time again that presidential candidates come in. I mean, we know that Hillary did not do this right. We know obviously Obama did, but certainly, Biden campaign did not exist in Florida, quite honestly. But in 2018, we knew that you have to win by getting out the blue in the big areas, but by losing by less in the rest of the state. And that's how we won. We targeted 13 counties across the state. I raised less than $2 million, so I wish I could have targeted more than 13, but we knew that we only had, limited resources. We targeted 13 counties and knew that we had to lose by less than them. And we flipped Seminole, we flipped Duval, lost by less than the Panhandle, lost by less in Polk County, lost by less in Lee County. And that was the difference of our votes. So I recognize the necessity to lift you all up. And the other thing that I feel very, very, very strong in 2018, I can't tell you how many times I kept hearing, at the top of the ticket wins, so do you, Nikki. Obviously, that was not the case. And so I feel very strong that we need to send our resources down ballot. We're going to know that there's going to be so much money at the top of the ticket coming in because there's no elected official on the Republican side that Democrats across the country hate and fear more than Ron DeSantis. the money will come. But if we don't allocate the resources to clubs and caucuses like you all that are on the ground, that are talking to the electeds, that are talking to the voters, supporting our House and our Senate candidates, and supporting our city and county commission seats, we can't win. It is empowering the bottom of the ticket, because the bottom of the ticket is what's going to get us to win the top of the ticket. It has been a reversed theory for too long, and I understand it, I see it, and that's how I'm going to change it.
Thank you for that. And if nothing else, then certainly we want to close by saying thank you so much, Commissioner Freed, for coming to join us today. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Derek. This is Glenda Alfred Atkins. My hand it wouldn't stay up.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
But I do have a question that's very dear to me. I would like to know your position on the critical race theory. And how, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, no, continue, Glenda, I'm sorry.
No, we know DeSantis' stand is that he's trying to stand against that, the state sanction. And so therefore, DeSantis feels that it's creating hate in our community within the schools and so forth. And of course, we as African Americans differ that opinion, because it is important that our students be taught Black history in the school. And so I just wondered your position on it, how you would address it, or would that be part of your agenda to attack?
I think that we have to first also recognize that DeSantis is using this as a wedge issue, and they saw that it worked up in Virginia, and that Democrats are falling for the rhetoric. And so we've got to be very smart about this. We know that our education system is failing our kids, that we've got to focus on making sure that we're teaching history, that we're teaching facts, that we're teaching our kids how to be successful in the workforce, that we're graduating kids. But the concern that I have with DeSantis is rhetoric, because that's what it is. It's rhetoric. It is creating divisiveness. It's creating a culture war, and it's creating anger in our state. And so we have to make sure that, one, we are not falling into the trap that he just tried to set yesterday. Because that's how we're going to lose. But we also have to recognize that there are serious problems in our education system. We are ranked 47th in the nation when it comes to funding for our teachers. We have schools that are falling apart. We all voted for the lottery, and money was transferred out of our state budget and only using lottery money, and to the detriment of our kids. We're not teaching financial literacy. We're not teaching a lot of things. And I think that making sure that we are educating our kids, getting away from so much testing. And so I think it is important that we recognize the rhetoric for what it is, and focus on the issues that are really impacting our kids and really impacting their educational environment. Of course, we have to teach history. As again, a member of the Jewish community, I was taught the Holocaust, and and that is important to understand, because we don't learn about the Holocaust, which is unfortunately what we're seeing, that same type of anger and rhetoric that's being taught right now by DeSantis. Those types of things will come back, and we're seeing it time and time again by what he is doing, taking away people's rights to vote, taking away our rights to protest, taking away our own freedom of speech every single opportunity he can. And instead, it is teaching hate and teaching why we need to scapegoat parts of our communities for all of these issues. And I'm sorry, but that's how I learned about the rise of Hitler. Is that same type of rhetoric and propaganda that he is spewing right now.
Thank you. Thank you for your answer. If I may, I just have one more question, Derek. Is it okay?
Go ahead.
Well, my other question is that DeSantis I believe, he just mandated that the schools will not mandate, but the people, the principals, the superintendents, and so forth, will try to impose a sanction against the schools who mandated that the students wear masks. Is that true?
Repeat that. So what happened? So what happened was, I think what you're saying is so in first of all, he created an executive order.
Right. Yeah, that's
he-
the word I was looking for. I couldn't think of it. Mhm.
So he signed an executive order
Right.
that mandated, that did not allow our school boards to enforce mask requirements in school. Unconstitutional for him to have done that executive order to begin with. He then went out of his way that if any school boards actually tried to protect our kids, that he was going to remove off from office or withhold funding. He tried to withhold fund. I called the White House and spoke to people in the administration and said, President Biden, we need your help and your support here. We need to make sure that if in fact he goes through with withholding funding from our school boards and from our school board members, that you are sending money down. And so we got President Biden on the record, and that's exactly what happened. Money came down, and in fact, this week alone, the federal government made the state legislature return all the money that they actually did withhold because they found that that was illegal. So we were right on this issue. We forced it. And unfortunately, in the state legislature during a special session a couple of weeks ago, they did pass a law that did not allow masks in schools. So this is a problem. You know, I have been very clear that what's happening in Bay County and Escambia County is different than what's happening in Miami-Dade County, that happens in Duval. Every school board should have the authorization to do what they believe is in the best interest of their own communities. And unfortunately, the Republican Party, who are supposed to be the party of home rule, it has gone against their own underlining principles.
Thank you. That's an excellent answer, because I wasn't up to date on the on what happened thereafter. So I appreciate you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you for doing that. Yes.
And thank you. Are there any other questions before we conclude today's Meet the Candidate? Well, certainly, again, I want to reiterate on behalf of us here in Escambia County, Commissioner Freed, thank you so very much on behalf of the Executive Board for the State Democratic Black Caucus of Florida. Thank you so very much for joining us. We look forward to having you again. Anytime you'd like to stop by, you have any words of wisdom or just keep us updated or need our help for anything, certainly please know that this is considered to be your open invitation. Just reach out and let us know. We'll be happy to have you with that. So again, thank you. And thank you, Abby, for helping coordinating this as well. I appreciate that. For those that don't know, Abby's on Nikki's team as well. So thanks to that. And I'll ask that each one of us, if you can, either virtually or aloud, whichever is easiest, give her a round of applause. And thank you for working with us today. So thank you so very much for that.
Well, and thank you for having me on here today. And again, I'm sorry about the connectivity a little bit, but hope everybody has a Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year. We got a lot of work to do in 2022, so counting on you all. Lots of boots on the ground. I know we can do it, and I have confidence in our party.
Yes, we're happy to help, and thanks again, and we appreciate it.
Thank you,
Have a good night.
Commissioner Freed.
Thank
Good-
you. Have a good night, everyone.
Good night. Now, with this is going to conclude our meeting for tonight. I will share, for those of you I know, there was a question in the chat. We are in our annual membership drive for all of the Black Caucus chapters across the state of Florida. So if you are interested, certainly what I will do is I can send each of you, we have an electronic application that I can send you via PDF. You're more than welcome to fill it out. We have a post office box that you can mail it. For those who are establishing membership, I'll just share with you. I think most everybody is either a member here or elsewhere in another county, but we are looking at our statewide dues at being assessed at $35 and a $15 assessment for local dues. So that would be a total of $50. The caveat to that would be if you are above the age of 65, instead of $50, you're only going to pay a total of $30. And if you are currently registered as a student of any kind in any of the local community college or continuing education programs, certainly that same price of $30 would apply for you then as well. The wonderful thing about it now is if you pay for it, if you submit your application and you establish your membership before the end of the year, you won't have to do it again until 2023. So we'll carry you through that period of time as well. So, and that goes the same for those of you all who are currently members and will be rejoining us, that those same rates would apply as well for you there. So if you have questions, if you want, certainly reach out to us at ECDBC and I'll put it in the chat, the email address, or you can reach out to us directly or to me directly, Derek Scott, and I'm happy to provide that for you, the application there, so you can get that in. But again, we're having it all the way through. You can join through 2022 as well, but just from a convenience standpoint, and to save you a few dollars, it'd probably be better sooner than later if you do it before the end of the year. So we certainly thank you for that. And I'm going to put that in the chat now just so everybody has it. Are there any other questions that I can answer or anybody else from our executive board here locally can answer for you? If not, certainly we do thank you for joining us today. We will have another one of these as we let you know for our other candidate, Annette Tadeo. We have gone, for those of you all who were with us, we did get a chance to hear from Charlie Crist. Tonight was Commissioner Freed, so she will be next on the agenda, so please look out for that. Thank you again. Enjoy your holidays, and we look forward to seeing you in 2022. And take care. Have a great night, everybody, and talk.
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
Have a good night, everyone.
Good night. Good night.
Good night.